Hello everyone, my name is Kiara Topete, and for my informative speech I'll be talking about my major, which is ethnic studies. And the reason why I chose ethnic studies as a major is because part of the reason, my older sister, she's a really big inspiration of mine. She's also an ethnic studies major, and she would talk to me about what she would learn in her classes while I was starting off in high school. And it was so interesting because we had no classes like that in high school or anything similar to that, so it was something really different. And also I grew up with a lot of different ethnic friends, so going over to their houses or hanging out with them was a big eye-opener because I always thought everyone grew up the same way as I did as a Catholic Mexican, which was, of course, I'm silly, but it was a big eye-opener, of course, and it made me want to explore and learn other backgrounds on my own. But basically, what ethnic studies is, it's an interdisciplinary study of race, ethnicity, nationality, sex, gender, etc. It talks about, women's and LGBTQ plus rights as well. And, it helps you comprehend the social, cultural, and historical experiences that these different backgrounds went through, and the discrimination that these backgrounds went through as well. But we also have to keep in mind that discrimination wasn't just a race thing. Anyone could get discriminated from, could get discriminated. A woman, LGBTQ plus community, a disabled person. It wasn't just a race thing, because a lot of people confuse those two. But ethnic studies helps you understand the concepts of minority and majorities and why we have these concepts to this day. And it helps us understand stereotypes as well. I've noticed recently that in the ethnic studies program that we've been questioning more about representation, questioning interdisciplinary topics. Like, for example, does a minority have the same and equal opportunities than an average white man? So there's just little things to think about. But basically, the cool thing about ethnic studies is that it first emerged here in the Bay Area in the 1960s. It emerged in 1969 at San Francisco State University. Ethnic studies is definitely a result of social reform, from a social reform movement. For example, the civil rights movement, the student movement. During 1968 to 1969, the Black Student Union and other Bay Area communities got together to protest against the lack of representation of indigenous peoples, people of color. They felt as if their history was being very whitewashed or sugar-coated, and they wanted to have their own classes. So in March of 1969, that's when they established the first ethnic studies classes, which happened to be Native American history, Native American studies, African American studies, Asian and Chinese American studies, and etc. There's so many other ones. And they also added, in the same month, they added the first College of Ethnic Studies at San Francisco State University as well. So something just really cool to think about, because I'm a Bay Area native. I'm sure a lot of you guys are as well. So it's something cool to think about that it first started here, and not that long ago as well. Basically, the importance of ethnic studies, it's the history of all of us, whether if you're American or not, because whether you're Mexican American, African American, Native American, Asian American, we're all American. We all share the same history in a way, and it helps us understand the stereotypes that we were all given way back then, and understand why we were given these stereotypes. Not that it justifies them, but it helps us understand why, and helps us. It teaches us about the obstacles and hardships that, if you're a minority, it teaches about the hardships and obstacles that you go through. So it helps us prepare, for the future. Because I'm a minority. I'm a Mexican woman. If I have gone through hardships in the back then that I never expected to actually go through. But it's really important to know this stuff and to be aware of your own background. But basically, it's also important because it teaches about the injustices that minorities went through back then, and hopefully, it teaches us so you learn what your place in society was, and helps us so history won't repeat itself. But basically, overall, it's important. Ethnic studies is important because it's very inclusive and talks about everything. It keeps you up with social issues that's going on today, and it's a very inclusive major and class, and it helps you understand a lot of things that you weren't taught in grade school, because of course in grade school everything is sugar coated and you're not taught you're only taught one side of history. Thank you.